Broadcasting from Singapore and broadcasting all around the world. You're listening to the Ignite EdTech Podcast with Craig Kemp, taking the pulse of educators from all over the globe and bringing what you need every week. When you need answers, you go to the experts. Created by an educator, for educators, and streaming to the world. Now, over to your host, Craig Kemp.
Hello and welcome to episode 39 of the Ignite EdTech Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Kemp, and I'm thrilled to have your support. The Ignite EdTech Podcast will continue to drop a new episode every week and will bring you news, tips, solutions, ways of learning, and interviews with the best of the best in the education and EdTech industry. As most of you know, I continue to work with the incredibly talented Quinn to improve the final audio quality of this podcast. He has his own podcast production studio that provides editing and mastering services to content creators. To connect with Mark, please see the details in the podcast notes below, and if you haven't subscribed to his Make a Different podcast yet, I highly encourage you to do so in the podcast channel of your choice. Last week, I encouraged you to think about your PLN, or Professional Learning Network, and the members of your team that make a difference in your learning every day. Thank you for sharing as always. Check out the social streams for more. This week, I want to ask you where you go to for learning. As educators, we often focus on others' learning and forget about our own. There are multiple portals out there for learning, and I've always been a fan of face-to-face courses. But with COVID, I've experienced a newfound energy of connecting and engaging in online content. Unfortunately, people often don't get the pedagogy or andragogy mix right. Over the past 2 weeks, Ignite EdTech has launched our new learning portal at learning.igniteedtech.com, a place for everyone to learn, connect, and grow on everything EdTech. There are free and paid courses being uploaded every week. You can sign up for free and explore when you can learn, grow, and develop. Please share with me via our Ignite EdTech social streams where you go to learn and grow. I'd love to give them an avenue for promotion through this channel too. I look forward to hearing your responses soon. A tool that has positively impacted the authentic and purposeful use of technology into classrooms and meeting rooms that I have worked in is Mote. Mote has become one of my favorite feedback tools for use in the classroom. Mote enables voice note feedback within Google Classroom, Google Docs, and more. Voice feedback and the ability to make a connection through the spoken word is a critical element of every classroom I've taught and been a part of. Mote is fast, friendly, and free. It's a Chrome extension that makes it easy for anyone to add voice notes and feedback to documents and assignments. Like any tool, there are paid add-ons, but the free version gives you unlimited Motes with 30-second limits. That's more than enough fast, effective feedback in my opinion. I really like the layout of their website too, which as a teacher gives you case studies and examples of how Mote is being used in your subject area or grade level. If you're looking to reduce workload and be more effective and efficient, then take a look at Mote for free. I highly recommend that you go to justmote.me. The link is in the description below. Last week, we talked about professional learning in schools and online. If you're interested in learning more, go back and listen to last week's episode. This week, I wanted to focus on saying yes. Saying yes is often perceived to be a dangerous thing, and often educators say yes too often because saying no is the hardest thing to do. When I think about my career progression, I look back and wonder what I'd be doing now if I didn't say yes to the opportunities that were thrown my way. I certainly wouldn't be living in Singapore. I wouldn't have had the opportunities to teach in diverse international schools. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to work with schools, run workshops, or keynote multiple conferences in countries all over the world. I definitely wouldn't be where I am today, working with schools and edtech companies all over the world to move from surviving to thriving if I didn't say yes. One of the best pieces of advice my wife gave me when moving into my own company was say yes more, and then start to refine. And it's been so powerful in the way I look at opportunities today. This conversation was sparked by 4 to 5 conversations that I've had in the past few weeks, where people have said no to opportunities that have potential benefit for them, their career, and the learners in their classrooms. Opportunities to chat, connect, learn and grow. Something that seems so small from the beginning could become an opportunity to add value in the future. In the specific frame of EdTech, saying yes can help you connect to people that can have a significant impact on your day, your classroom, your learners, and your career. Often, there are times, and some people, that need to learn to say no. But thinking from an optimistic mindset when it comes to technology can be beneficial for everyone. As educators, our priority is the learners that we work with every day and adding value to their learning experience. But saying no to multiple opportunities puts you back in the mindset of, this is the way I've always done things, or I don't have time for that, or I don't know if it's the right fit for my school. I wanted to share this in the hope that more of you say yes to opportunities to connect, communicate, engage in conversation, and to learn from others. Identify what's important in the EdTech space and know your why, as we've talked about in previous episodes. Have a think about how you can reframe opportunities that come your way, and then push away those that will have no impact on your own or others' learning. Take a risk this week. Say yes to an opportunity. Connect with people or companies that you've been pushing away, and just see what happens and comes your way. I know you're busy, but find time for your own learning, your own growth, and your own development too. Please share your yes stories and opportunities so we can discuss them on next week's show. I'd love to hear from you. Every week, I bring you a short interview with some of my edu heroes, an engaging learning experience with someone who makes a difference in education every day, with a particular focus or angle towards educational technology. This week, I had the pleasure of chatting with Chris Woods and Noah Daniel. Let's have a listen to the chats. Today, I have the honor of speaking with Chris Woods. You might know him as @DailySTEM on Twitter. Chris and I have been connected online for a while now, and with over 23,000 followers, I can see why people are connected with him. Chris is based in the US and is an advocate for STEM teaching and learning. Chris is a high school math teacher, presenter, and host of the STEM Everyday podcast. Chris, it's an incredible pleasure to have you on the show today. Are you ready to talk about education and technology integration?
Craig, I'm always happy to talk about education, technology, integration, all those things. It's so exciting to be with you today.
Awesome, man. Let's go. Why don't you start by telling us about your current role and what inspires you to do what you do?
All right. So yeah, like you mentioned, Craig, I've been a teacher for 20 years. In fact, this summer, it's summer where I am. This summer, I'm changing school districts for the first time in my career. And I'm moving from a very rural school district where you know everybody already, and moving to a brand new school like 500 miles away. But moving to a school that is a little more of a city, an urban school, part of a public school system, and it's a brand new school basically that's starting out of there's an elementary, a Spanish immersion school where the kids learn both in English and Spanish, and they never had a high school to go with it. So this year they're finally creating the high school to go with it, and so I get to be one of these founding members of the staff of this brand new school. So that to me is really exciting, just for the completely different opportunity, but also to start a school from scratch. I mean, how exciting would that be for most educators?
Wow, yeah, that's such an exciting opportunity and not something that everyone gets to do. So good luck to you, because that's an exciting thing to be a part of. And you have the pleasure of probably working with many people and the ability to see so many with the connections that you have globally. A lot of the work you do is in the area of STEM. I would call you a STEM guru. What's your best advice for educators listening to this on how to get started on their STEM journey?
Great question, because I think a lot of educators are very nervous about STEM. They think I need expensive kits, I need to have rockets and robots and 3D printers, and all those things are great, and all those things are part of great STEM learning, but scares too many educators from starting or having the confidence to start and do something. And really, STEM is just that connection between the real world, all that relevant stuff happening outside your school's walls, and the content that's in your classroom, in your standards, the things you need to teach. So finding little connections, finding 2 minutes here or 5 minutes there to point out a picture of something interesting you saw of how a building is built to your kids, and saying, how do you think they built that? How do you think that works? Why did they design it this way? Or bringing in a cool leaf that you found on a tree and saying, take a look at this leaf. What do you notice about it? Why is this different than all these other leaves over here? And just getting kids to think and wonder, and then also that creating aspect, getting kids to just try making something. And a lot of people do the very simple things like spaghetti and marshmallow towers, or how many cards can you build up high to hold something up? And those are great ways to start. just trying something with your kids, and then giving them that opportunity to be creative.
I love that, the way you've sort of described STEM and the way that people can get into STEM, because just today, sitting with my 6-year-old and just building stuff, and for no reason, but just getting Lego out and getting books out and creating things and making things all around the house. And I love that. And I love that schools are bringing back this idea of creation and making and curiosity, and pushing away from that consumption of content and allowing kids to make and create and do and explore, because that's something for me as a kid that I really loved. And I think in the world that we're in now, particularly with the COVID situation, but also with advancement in technology and what's available to us, we can use it in ways to help add so much value to the work we're doing. And the work that you do, Chris, what's your best advice for educators in relation to educational technology?
Boy, I think a lot of educators are, especially right now, so willing to try every new product or every new tool that they come across. And they maybe only know how to use it a little bit, and they may try it and get frustrated, and the kids might try it and get frustrated, and the kids have multiple different teachers giving them multiple different platforms and technologies. And sometimes we need to just simplify things a little bit. Just use, those 1 or 2 tools that you're really good at for connecting with kids. Use those couple of things that you feel confident with, and then give the kids that platform, that opportunity to try using them and using them in unique and creative ways. Like you said, Craig, there's so many simple ways that people can use things. Like you could use a Google Sheet to have all the kids add their data from if they were to go out and pick up a handful of rocks, and then you could have different columns for all the different colors of rocks. And each kid with access to that same Google Sheet can say, I had 2 green rocks, 5 blue ones, 4 gray ones, and a pink one. And instantly you've taken something that's a very simple tool to use like Google Sheets, and you've turned it into a collaborative tool for kids to collect real data that's outside in their yard, in their environment. And then they can all analyze it together. Nothing complicated, just good STEM.
And that's really cool. And what about as far as EdTech tools go that you're currently using, which is one that you think that the rest of the listeners here should know about?
I love finding things, Craig, that educators can use that are very simple. And for me, it's a lot of those free websites that give both teachers and kids ideas. Instructables is a great website, instructables.com, where you can basically search for these how-to descriptions on how to make things. And whether it's cooking or sewing or electronics or simple coding things or woodworking, it's got all these people from all around the world upload their pictures, their descriptions of how to make something. Not only is that powerful for giving a kid an idea of how to make something, and a lot of them are very make do with what you got kind of projects, but it also provides curiosity and spark, to that curiosity. So maybe it's like, oh, what could I make out of what I've got? And actually, as a teacher, you can start an account and you can have kids create their own descriptions, that bring that literacy aspect into STEM. And how would you write a step-by-step process of making something or creating something, and then upload that for others to experience and recreate on their own. Again, just a simple website. And there's so many really, really interesting things out there. Tinkercad is great for creating in that 3-dimensional space. Or there's lots of simulators that allow kids to experience science, like pHed simulations out of Colorado in the United States. Just simple things that can help a kid maybe create a science experiment, yet they're at home where they don't have access to test tubes and beakers and Bunsen burners.
Yeah, and I love the way you've described your learning journey and the learning journey of the students in your school and people you work with. Learning's important to all of us as educators. What's one book or resource that you've been reading lately, or just one of your all-time favorites, and tell us why we should be exploring it?
All right, well, I'm going to cheat here a little bit, Craig. I'm going to give you 2 real quickly. Number 1 is The Simple Faith of Mr. Rogers. And anybody that reads a book about Mr. Rogers, if you know worldwide the show Mr. Rogers in the United States, just this person from the 60s to early 2000s. And every day it was just a very calm, relaxing, very consistent children's program that basically encouraged wonder and looking at the world around it. And I think that's a lot of those things, those qualities that we need with our kids right now, especially as they're dealing with the trauma and things of life. But a book I'm really enjoying as a STEM educator right now is Every Tool's a Hammer by Adam Savage from Mythbusters fame. And he basically explains all of how his making and creating his STEM, his makerspace kind of mind works. And there's so many great ideas that I'm learning, even though I'm, quote unquote, as you said, a STEM guru already. I'm learning so much.
Everything you've explained here as well, Chris, we'll make sure all these links are in the podcast description below so people listening can jump on and click in and explore those as well. On that note, what's the best way for listeners to follow and connect with you?
Best way for anybody to find me is at dailystem.com. Or they can go on, Twitter, I'm on a lot. Instagram and Facebook, I'm on a little bit. Those are all at Daily STEM. But if they want to find any of all the free resources and things that I make for educators, dailystem.com is where it's at.
And we'll send everyone that way. And also a shout out to your podcast, STEM Every Day. And we'll make sure we have the link to that in there as well. Chris, thank you so much for your time today.
I appreciate it so much, Craig. Keep up the great work and encouraging those educators everywhere to just try something new.
Thanks, Chris. Today, I have the honor of speaking with Noah Daniel. You might know her from Twitter, where she's a constant creator and sharer of learning. Noah is based in Ontario, Canada, and is a teacher, consultant, coach, and chief building officer at Building Outside the Blocks. Noah is a podcaster and blogger and is a TedX speaker. Noah, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today. Are you ready to talk about education and technology integration?
I'm born ready to talk about education, and I am more and more ready to talk about technology integration. So I'm really excited to be here, Craig. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. Let's do this. Why don't you start by describing your current role and what inspires you to do what you do?
Well, I'm a classroom teacher, and even though I teach part-time, everything I do is really about learning and creating experiences for people, educators, and students to find meaning in learning opportunity. Essentially, the other half of my life, I create things. So I work with schools or individuals, and I create projects and initiatives and really enjoy developing the Mentory. It was co-founded with my partner, Lee Castle, and now we're really evolving it into a place for mentorship so that teachers can find a mentor and learn more about things in education in their own way, in the ways that they learn best.
That's really cool. You've had the experience of speaking on a TEDx stage, and I've had several listeners interact with me and engage with me about what that is like and is it worth going for. So it'd be great if you could just tell us a little bit about the TEDx process. How does it work and why did you get involved with it?
So TED was like a beacon for me. I love TED Talks and they were always inspiring, and I would break them down for my students who would be doing them as part of a Bobified Genius Hour, because Bob is the name of my projects and my company, Building Outside the Blocks. So I had dreamt of it, and then I had been to this particular event, the TEDx Kitchener Ed event in 2018, and thought, I really, really want to do that one day, and really was sure it would take multiple times. So when I applied, it was 2017 was the last one. I applied in 2019 thinking it would take me, a long time to evolve my application, and I got in. And then they, offer you a lot of support and advice through the process, and you try your best to focus on the speaking part of it. I got a little bit carried away with images, and that was reminded multiple times that this was a speaking event and that I had to focus on my words more than the images. But that was also a really powerful learning experience. And so to be able to talk about my podcast, which came from a Bob project from my class, and to be able to share in many ways my entire life story in this 8-minute TED Talk was a pinnacle of my educational experience, but my entire life.
So now, how can people find your TEDx experience online?
You can actually find it at TED.com, but it's pinned to my profile on Twitter. And so is the outline for the Personal Playlist Project, where, my show, the Personal Playlist Podcast, where I interview educators through 3 songs, Nostalgic Identity and Pick Me Up, which you were on, which I had a lot of fun getting to know you through. actually came from my classroom. It's a project that I created for my intermediate students. So I usually do it in grade 7 or 8, depending when I'm teaching. And it's a wonderful way to get to know kids. So I have that outline available for anybody who wants to do it. And a lot of people have been using my projects for remote learning because it's a wonderful way to connect with kids and invite them to use the ed tech that they're most comfortable with to tell whatever the story is through the project, because all of my projects have not only a personalizing element, but ask students to go through a self-inquiry in the process. So it's a really powerful way to be able to get to know kids and have them get to know themselves.
Yeah, that's really cool. And one of the things I haven't told you already is that one of the main reasons why I started my own podcast is because my experience with you was so positive and so enlightening, and it really excited me about wanting to share more. So that's sort of why I got into what I'm doing now as well. And it's a pleasure to have you on the show because you're one of the ones that energized me to get this started. So I have to say thank you very, very much.
I'm a little verklempt. I can't quite believe you're telling me that. That's really cool, Craig. Thanks.
In your role, you support kids in the classroom, but you also support teachers in what they do and leaders and educators from all over the world. What's your best advice for educators in relation to educational technology?
Well, I think that there are two things I would say. The first one is know yourself, because part of emerging technologies and understanding what works best is that, and I use George Couros' line all the time, is that technology will not replace great teachers, but technology in the hands of great teachers can be transformational. So if you know yourself and what you want to be teaching and how you want to be teaching for your students, and you need to know them too, then it makes it much easier to take a deep dive into the technologies that will best support them.
You and I have been connected, Noah, for a long time on Twitter, and we both engage quite regularly with that professional learning network. What's your choice of professional learning networks? Where else do you engage, and who should we be connecting with?
Well, there are a lot of people that I engage with, and it's been a really incredible 24/7 access to learning and thinking. I'm getting mentored from my students how to get better on Instagram and my daughters, because I really see that that's a very interesting place to share and learn from people. In terms of my PLN, though, there are like different degrees, almost concentric circles. So I have lots of amazing people that I watch what they do almost in a just non-participant observational way. And then I have people with whom I engage in deep and meaningful conversations and all those spaces in between. So what I recommend when it comes to social media is going to people like you and looking at the people they engage with and following them, because it's like they told two friends and so on and so on. And it's a great way to take the people that are already in one of your concentric circles and expand your network. So that's what I would suggest.
It's fantastic advice and something that I share regularly as well. And that it's the power of it's not what you know, it's who you know sometimes. And it's that ability to connect and engage with people from every corner of the globe and be able to learn from so many different people who you wouldn't be able to interact with on that daily basis. And one of the other things that for me is really powerful about Twitter is learning about all sorts of things that are out there, all the new tools that people are using, but most importantly, why they're using it and how they're using it to transform learning. Tell us about an EdTech tool that you currently love using in your day-to-day work or in your classroom work, and why you love it.
So it's simple and wonderful and accessible, but I would say it's Google JamBoard. It came out really right before we were in remote learning mode. And I have these Bob projects, building outside the blocks, as I said before. And one of my projects was a snapshot. And my students go through every single Friday a photograph analysis and decoding called Friday Photo. And they do that every single Friday of the school year until February. And then in February, I give them their snapshot outline and they start presenting their own original photographs, usually to the class, to decode through these 4 steps. And when we were in remote learning mode, I was like, how am I still going to do this project? Because they were so excited about it. And it's an evolution of all their work, really analyzing photographs. So I decided to let them either take their own photograph or choose a photograph from the world that was meaningful to them. And then we used JamBoard, and on each slide, they would go through all 4 parts of the deconstruction. So describe, analyze, interpret, infer, and then evaluate. So they could not only construct something meaningful, but they could lead the decoding of that text through JamBoard. And what was interesting about it was, even though the first stage of Describe engages every single class member, it was amazing to see students having more time, like more thought time, more processing time, to take those first 3 steps, wait for the reveal of the meaning behind the photograph, and in the evaluation stage, synthesize the thinking around that photograph and then name it. And it really did engage some more students than it would have in the class. And it's making me think of how to use that as a complement to Snapshot when we are back in class. So I really like JamBoard. It's great for thinking. With the Mentee, we have started conversations to build capacity where people that don't know each other come to have a conversation around a table of an idea, a virtual table. And JamBoard's great for grounding the conversation, going through the norms of collaboration, and letting people add a sticky if there's something else that they think that they need in order to be comfortable and engage in the dialogue. And then going through each of the pages, having people add their thoughts and then building from those thoughts. So you're really constructing conversation around who's in the room. So I really like JamBoard.
I love the way you described it as being a place for, constructing conversations and building capacity, because JamBoard is something that's new to my toolkit. And it's actually something that I've only just started investigating in the last few weeks. And the way that I'm thinking about this is, how can I use this as a tool to, exactly what you said, create conversations, but craft those conversations and also help people build capacity in a community type feeling. So it's a really exciting tool for me, and the link to it is in the description below as well. And you've sort of described the whole learning process, Noah, and it's kind of a good lead in here to the next thing I want to talk about, which is that as an educator, we all know that learning is critical. It's something that we all love to do. But what's one book or one resource that you've been reading lately, or just one of your all-time favorites, and tell us why we should be exploring it?
There are so many favorites, and I'm reading a lot of books right now. But I think that probably Brene Brown's Dare to Lead is something I will continue coming back to, and probably Adam Grant's Originals, because all those books apply perfectly to education. Educators are leaders. And whether you only lead in the classroom or you choose to use platforms like social media to lead outside your classroom, it's a great reminder of many aspects of what it means to be a leader and what it means to sometimes be a little bit different than other people. And it's something I've always, both joyfully embraced and also struggled with inside the system. So I find both of those books really helpful and grounding in my thinking and in my work, because I'm trying to create things outside of some of the constraints of time and curriculum expectations, so that things that educators or students do are deeply meaningful and something that comes from who they are, which can be hard and sometimes an upstream battle. So those are books that help me feel better about the work and get me reframing my thinking.
I appreciate that, because it's something that, particularly in your busy schedule in your life, sometimes you just need that outlet and that place for you to sort of take your frame of mind and to think of a way that you want to extend yourself and learn and grow as well. And speaking of extending, learning and growing, the listeners today that are here listening to this, I know that they're going to want to follow and connect with you and potentially ask you more questions or just follow along with what you're doing. What's the best way for them to follow and connect with you?
So definitely on Twitter at Noah's Bobs, which will now make sense because you know that it's not, a Southern name, No Bob, but it's it's my projects and my name. But you can also find me on Instagram at Building Outside the Blocks, and you can go to my website, buildingoutsidetheblocks.com. You can also go to thementee.com if you want to learn more about how mentorship can help support professional learning, teacher well-being, and efficacy. And that's another piece of the work that I do because I create projects and initiatives.
All of those links are in the description below. Noah, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Every time I speak to you, I get inspired. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hey, Craig, have a fantastic day.
Next week, join me for episode 40 of the Ignite EdTech Podcast when I'm joined by Trevor McKenzie. One of the things I love doing is giving away prizes as a thank you for tuning in, listening, and hopefully subscribing to the Ignite EdTech Podcast. Last week, I gave away 2 copies of Dan Ryder's books. To win, you needed to complete the form at bit.ly/edtechwin. The winners have already been contacted directly by me, and they are Anila Verma and Rachel Smith. Congratulations to you both. This week, I'm giving away a seat in the Ignite EdTech IT Support Learning course, valued at $400. Currently, those seats are discounted to $200 with our promotion. The course is designed for IT support staff to help them better understand teachers, education, and pedagogy, and it's proven to be extremely popular. You can learn more at learning.igniteedtech.com. To win this incredible prize, you need to go to bit.ly/edtechwin and complete the simple form. It'll take you less than a minute to do. The link is in the description below, and competition closes on Wednesday the 10th of March, and the winners will be contacted directly by me and announced on next Friday's podcast episode. Good luck. Thank you for being an extremely important part of the Ignite EdTech podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, smash that subscribe button and share it with your colleagues, friends, and families. Please remember to spend 2 minutes to rate the podcast so we can reach even more educators and EdTech enthusiasts globally. Please share your favorite part of today's episode by tagging me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. And don't hesitate to ask me questions so I can answer them in an upcoming episode. Remember, you have the chance to win as well. Check out the links in the description for more, and I'll see you again next week.
If you liked today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss another episode. And be in the drawing to win prizes every week. If you know others that would enjoy the show, please hit that share button and brighten their day. Join us again next week for your weekly EdTech hit with @Mr. Kemp NZ. We'll see you again soon.